itself.
The ultimate limit of that is the arms necessary to prevent. Basically, you can own any arm that is necessary to necessary.
They're fucking killing Arnie kids, so you're telling me it isn't real when they had a fucking vote in the goddamn fucking Senate?
You're being replaced, and there's nothing you can do about it. So shut up.
Welcome, everyone, to the Ready to Rumble podcast. As always, I am your host and your favorite bard, Korak the Bard, joined by my stalwart co-host, your very own personal doctor, Dr. Scorpion the Bird. Welcome.
Thank you, Bard. Thank you. I am Dr. Scorpion the Bird. I am a real doctor. I'm not a real bird, and I am here for the nerd shit.
As am I. So this week continues our unbroken strain of episodes where they just kind of break in half, and we have completely run out of time. So we're not done talking about it. So we're in the middle of our Death and Destruction quadrilogy. I'm not sure yet. We might have 8 parts to this, but we're on part 2 of Charlie Kirk, on the heels of part 1 of 2 of Ozzy Osbourne and Hulk Hogan. So last we met, we were talking about Charlie Kirk, the man and the mouth, and what he said and what our reaction was to that. Doc, what are we diving into this week on the other side of the Charlie Kirk coin?
Well, the other side of the Charlie Kirk coin is to talk a little bit about not just what he said, but who he was, who his backers were, what his sources of funding were. And of course, let's not forget the mission statement of the show. We're going to look at what Rumble had to say about the Charlie Kirk death.
Excellent. Well, before we get started, how about you tell me something good? What is your wonderful thing that you are holding on to keep your spark of humanity intact this week?
My something good this week, it's a weird something good, but bear with me. The last of my kids has finished high school. So they're done. No more high school for us. And I say it's a weird one because it's not something good exactly, but it is a new and different phase of life. They're moving on to taking a gap year before they start with their higher education. So it's less something good in terms of, oh wow, this is a wonderful new pizza restaurant I've discovered, or look at how much different I can make guitar noise now. It's just something good that's like, this is the next phase of life. This is good. This is positive. My kids are growing up. They're legal adults now. They're free to go and do legal adult grown up stuff, and that's nice, Yeah,
that's great. Another step along the path towards being an empty nester, and then you have to live with your wife all the time.
Given how both my kids at home are artistically inclined, and
they won't be leaving the house anytime soon.
Given how rarely you hear the word artist without the word starving in close proximity, I don't imagine the nest is going to be particularly empty anytime soon.
They will live a bohemian existence in the basement.
Most likely, yes. Yeah. But again, that's fine. That's what they want to do now. We know how tough it is these days. We know how out of reach owning a house has become for most young people, and that's fine. Yeah. I've been saying for years, this is the something good section, so I'm not going to go too deep into the anti-capitalist Marxist rant and talk about how the nuclear family is a tool of capitalism that's absolutely intentionally designed to isolate people and fuel capitalism through isolation and loneliness. This is the something good section. So I'm going to remind everybody that historically, multi-generational households were normal. And it's only been about since the mid-20th century that the concept of the nuclear family was attempted to become normalized. And even then, it was only normalized within the specific Anglophone cultures of places like America and Canada and Australia and New Zealand and the UK and so on. So
You mean the area and the era of time when the wealthy were taxed upwards of 80%, and a single income for a household could support a family of 6 with vacations and cars in the garage? That time, are you referring to?
A single income from a man who left school at the age of 16 with no further qualifications could support a family of 6 with 2 cars in the garage. I know this because that was my upbringing. My dad, who left school at the age of 16 and supported a family of 6 on a single wage and still took us on holidays, etc., and so on. So yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Good times.
But this was the something good section, so I'm focusing
Yes.
on the good bits here. So tell
Oh,
us,
that's
Marv,
wonderful.
what's your something good this week?
Fortunately, my something good is the complete opposite end of the ballpark. It's very juvenile. It's very nerdy. It's very frivolous as something good. But it was otherwise mundane week. So my something good happened just a few hours ago, and you were present for it in our D&D game, where my co-host slash DM is running a game where we met what you would call, I guess, an underboss, like a mini boss, surrounded by a swarm of minions. So a very dire situation for me and my fellow adventurers. And I went in and swept the entire room before anything could happen, killed the big boss, and it is a wonderment to watch your DM respond to your actions with, huh. And then, you can do that. And she's fucking dead. Okay, that's lunch, everybody. It just made me happy.
Look, I am nothing if not a fair and benevolent DM, and anytime a player of mine comes up with a great strategy or just an imaginative piece of play, I can't not reward that. It's what can I say? You've got a group of enemies that are essentially sentient dried twigs. Of course, you send in a being made of walking fire that just has to come close to them to reduce them all to ash. Oh, and then by the way, that leaves the mini boss incredibly vulnerable. So yeah, no, it was brilliant. I 10 out of 10, no notes.
I didn't realize that till now, so I'm glad. Yeah, burn every last thing down, and then wonderful. My D&D nerdiness is a source of happiness here today. So
I'm glad to facilitate. I'm glad I could facilitate that happiness.
And you are indeed a very benevolent and fair DM, and as such, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, where now you have to compensate for the fact that at any time he could just send a fire starter into the room. So how do we destroy that? And like, it's escalation. It's Batman shows up, and the Joker's got to show up, and then all that good stuff.
Oh yeah, don't you worry. I got plans. I got ideas. I can't have you cakewalking all the way through my campaign.
Right. You are in a flooded cavern that has constant rain coming down. I'm sorry, your fire elemental is completely useless.
Just listeners, just for a little more context, the fight was taking place in a winery. There were some large vats of fermenting wine. There was the ability, of course, or would have been the ability, of course, to flood the arena with wine. I just never got the chance. That was how quickly Gorak managed to destroy everything. As I'm sitting back thinking, well, I could just use the wine to put this fire out, except there's no one left alive to empty the vats. So
yeah, they all died. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Early lunch. Yeah.
I want to thank Lauren, and I want to thank the cast and crew. Everyone's been great. Just in the fire elemental. I mean, he really stole the show. So yeah, very happy tidings for me today in Nerdland. So
beautiful.
Leaving that little warm and fuzzy, what do we have in store for us today, Doc?
Well, we're going to start today with a brief biography of Charlie Kirk. He was born on the 14th of October 1993, the son of Catherine Kirk, who was a trader at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, who then became a mental health counselor, and Robert W. Kirk, an architect who was involved in the construction of, amongst other things, Trump Tower. Now, Robert Kirk was active in conservative politics and a significant donor to the local Republican Party. So right away, we have a falsehood in the stories that you've heard about Charlie growing up in a politically neutral, politically moderate, politically inactive household. He did not. He grew up in the suburb of Arlington Heights, a wealthy suburb, to wealthy parents who were very much politically motivated, very much politically active. But already, even those earlier stages of his life, we've seen rewritten over the last week or so as Charlie growing up in a politically moderate household.
And this is just 6 degrees of separation. Like, do they all know each other? Like, this is incestuous Game of Thrones shit.
It seems to be very small circles on the conservative side. No one seems to be very far removed from anyone at all. But anyway, Charlie became politically active late in high school. He gained attention in his final year of high school when he wrote an essay for Breitbart News, again, very small circles, alleging liberal bias in high school textbooks. And this
liberal bias, what are the odds?
Liberal bias in high school textbooks. This led to his first media appearance on Fox Business at age 17. So we've got, again, as far back as that, so age 17, so that would have been 2010. Yeah, so we're already seeing the disconnection between conservatism and reality.
And he's no doubt on there as a 17-year-old wunderkind.
Yeah, I haven't seen the footage of that. But yeah, I've got no doubt that that's what it was, some kind of fawning coverage of, this teen wonder, future conservative star. After he finished high school, Charlie applied to the West Point Military Academy, but was rejected. And he claimed several times that this rejection was based not on his academic performance, but that his place had been given to, quote, a far less qualified candidate of a different gender and a different persuasion, end quote.
Oh, I was going to throw in, it was a DEI hire what done me in, I swear.
In later years, he would claim that he was being sarcastic about this, that he didn't really mean it. But yeah, we're seeing that misogyny and that racism nice and early for young Charlie.
Well, no wonder he's got a vendetta against DEI because they took my job, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, that's exactly it. He was Turk my gerbs nice and early, even before he had a gerb for them to Turk.
And he finally made it onto South Park, unironically.
Yeah. Have they pulled that episode yet?
They did.
Damn shame. Sorry, folks. So, from failing to attend West Point Military Academy, he did attend Harper Community College for one semester. At the end of that semester, he met a former Tea Party affiliated Republican and businessman by the name of Bill Montgomery. Montgomery met young Charlie at Benedictine University's Youth Empowerment Day, and so impressed by Charlie Kirk's speech that he delivered on that day that Montgomery encouraged Charlie to leave college so that they could together found a nonprofit group called Turning Point USA as a political action committee to rival liberal groups like Move On. I'm sure you've heard of Move On, supporter of progressive causes. So Turning Point USA, or TP USA, was set up as a direct opposition to Move On's support for progressive causes.
So shady old wealthy benefactor man appears on college campus and recruits young upstart to front this movement. Wow, it's just like Marty McFly and Doc, like that. Of course, it's a perfect pairing. Well, how
Yeah.
many times do teenagers hang out with wealthy old benefactors?
Yeah, nothing sus there at all.
Nope.
So TP's USA's, and of course, I love that TP is your American abbreviation for toilet paper, and I can't not think of that every time someone says TP USA. TP USA's main mission was to go to college campuses and actively recruit young students, young people to the Republican cause. Charlie formed several other groups, including the Falkirk Center for Faith and Liberty, which was a right-wing think tank funded, owned, and housed by Liberty University.
Liberty University, that rings a bell.
I would love to do an entire episode on Liberty University and the culture of endangerment, I'm going to say, that led to them getting the single biggest fine levied against any educational institution in US history. A fine that was waived by the Trump administration because the Trump administration doesn't feel like there's anything wrong with creating a culture that endangers college students. But I also don't want to get too sidetracked by that because if we're going to talk about that, I want to make sure I have all the details at hand so I can say everything that's completely correct and not illegally actionable.
And it's the one time where the right isn't being hypocritical when they say that college is a terrible place for these young people. Yeah, it's the calls coming from inside the house. Isn't it true that Charlie Kirk's assassin also went to one semester of community college?
Well, trade school, I believe.
So all it takes to indoctrinate your poor, innocent, sweet, right-wing, patriotic child who loves guns is one semester in trade school. Wow.
That's the story they are telling. That is the story they are telling.
And I'm sure the stats bear out given all the, oh, wait a minute. No, how many people graduate every year and don't do this shit?
Yeah. Well, look, like I said, I don't want to get too sidetracked into the full scandals involving Liberty University. So for today's purpose, we're simply going to say that in 2021, Liberty University chose not to renew Kirk's contract with the Falkirk Center.
Sorry, Charlie.
But we do need to talk about the money.
Money.
So Kirk initially raised approximately $8.6 million in the first year of TPUSA.
Who are all these people with that much disposable income who really give a shit about right-wing politics? Oh my God.
The donor list included names such as Home Depot co-founder Bernard Marcus, former Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner, and heir to the Schlitz Brewing Company fortune, Richard Ulane. Keep all of that in mind. So they started with $8.6 million. By 2023, TPUSA's revenue had risen to $83 million.
See, this is the conspiracy theory from So I Married an Axe Murderer, but it's not the Rothschilds and the Gettys. It's like 24 people that all know each other, and they're just pouring money into this shit.
Yep. Half of that money, half of that $86 million came from 10 individual donors.
Ow, man.
of the ilk, the types of name that we just mentioned before. Like I said, it's a very small circle in conservative politics.
So in other words, as the right wing would say, it was a grassroots movement.
Funny you should say that. We're getting right there. But before we get there, we need to talk about the financial irregularities that TPUSA has been repeatedly accused of.
Irregularities, you say? How could that happen?
Well, most of them are regarding the allegedly independent audits of TPUSA's finances. Now, TPUSA claimed that they appointed an independent accounting firm to conduct these audits, but it turns out that the accounting firm that they used had strong ties to TPUSA co-founder Bill Montgomery.
Of course.
Montgomery himself was awarded lucrative contracts totaling in the millions of dollars for
What?
handling TPUSA's printing and payroll.
No.
Mm.
Wow. Okay. I'd love to be wealthy enough to offer myself my own kickbacks.
I would like just once to have to scratch deeper than the surface to find the grift.
Right. This took a Google search and just a couple of minutes of no, there it is. Money's right there.
Listeners, this is me Googling to find all of this stuff. This is not me with secret informants or...
We are not Dan and Jordan. We didn't have to go to the courtroom to listen to
No.
Alex Jones shit himself on the stand. This is just public information.
I am not an investigative reporter. This comes from Wikipedia and The Guardian. You know, this is not tough stuff to find, but it's just, yeah, like I said, it would be nice if the grift wasn't so obvious and lazy. It would be nice if they put some effort into it, but they're not even trying. This is funneling money from their friends. I'm not going to use the phrase money laundering in conjunction with this, but if I had a bunch of money that I wanted to launder, I could think of many worse ways of laundering it than funneling it through a 501c3 charity that's set up by my friend and his young teenage protege. You know what I mean?
Remember, I never thought I'd say I long for the days when Dick Cheney would at least do his crimes undercover. Like they made a pretense at least to not be completely overt about it.
Yes, the ethical days of Dick fucking Cheney. Yep.
Jesus Christ.
So, of course, Charlie himself was the CEO of Turning Point USA. And in 2016, as the CEO of Turning Point USA, he was making $20,000 a year. By 2024, that number had risen to $407,000 a year.
Not bad.
In addition to this, Kirk was rumored to make between $50,000 and $100,000 in speakers' fees per public event, and he did a lot of public events. But I couldn't confirm this. I could not confirm these numbers. Funnily enough, the charliekirk.com website is still up. It is still active, and you can still at least fill in the form to book Charlie Kirk as a speaker. Not sure if he'll be showing.
They will still take your money.
They'll still take the booking. Yeah.
If my Google skills are accurate, when he passed, he was worth somewhere between $10 and $12 million, something like that.
We'll get to that in a minute too.
Can't wait.
His podcast, The Charlie Kirk Show, was regularly near the top of Apple's podcast charts. So he had a fairly lucrative income stream coming in from that as well. Because, of course, his podcast featured the types of sponsorships that we've seen already on our forays into the Rumble channels. He wrote 5 books, 4 of which became bestsellers. And I'm sure that none of them had the type of questionable sales patterns that put the little star next to Don Jr.'s book. You remember Don Jr.'s book and how it languished near the bottom of all the charts until 2 weeks before the RNC, when suddenly it sold 40,000 copies? Yeah. I'm sure nothing like that happened with Charlie's books.
Totally not ghostwritten or bought en masse by shady right-wing groups who are funneling more money into the system.
All super cool and normal.
Yeah, especially from a college dropout like that. I mean, 5 books. What did he write? Aragon Part 2? Or was it?
I don't even want to talk about the books. They're just.
As a slight digression, if I may, do they have a standard? Like we like Ann Coulter has a single word in block letters. I think we were talking about Pete Hegseth or somebody where it was like such and such : this and that about. America.
Yeah, that was Dan Bongino's thing. Yeah. No, he doesn't have that shtick. I didn't even bother writing down the titles because they're just so generically American conservative that you'll forget them the second I say them. It's not important. And of course, the news came out just yesterday that the new CEO of Turning Point USA is
Erica
Charlie's widow, Erica Kirk.
Kirk.
Yes.
Yes.
So
He won with the and nobody calls this out. I understand why, because it's such a vulnerable subject, but her performative funeral porn was so disturbing and unsettling and anti-personal, followed by his interactions with his kids, where it's like the human emotionality of this is just, you've entered somehow back into the uncanny valley.
yeah. I mean, look, far be it from me to criticize the actions of a grieving widow. So I'm not going to. However, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, in the Japanese anime, this would be shigosh, and then ... and then to be continued. Like,
so
yeah,
why are we bringing up the money? What's the point of bringing up the money? Because when people are talking about the influence of dark money groups on American politics, Turning Point USA is exactly the type of group they are talking about. Turning Point USA was not some kind of organically grown grassroots movement that came about because a small number of small dollar concerned citizens got themselves organized at the local level. No, it was a perfect example of what you referred to before about the AstroTurf, the fake grassroots that is actually heavily funded by anonymous donors. That's why it's important that half of their money came from 10 individual donors. Right? And you look at groups like Move On, and they've got the bulk of their money coming from small dollar, a couple of $100 to a couple of $1,000 type donors. Turning Point USA was $80 million, $40 million came from 10 people.
It's just the ultimate evolution of the Tea Party, except instead of now being the underdog oppositional party, they have a sympathetic figurehead in the White House that they helped elect. So let the money flow.
Yep. And the thing is, anyone who wants to claim that Turning Point USA or Charlie Kirk aren't claiming to be grassroots, let me read to you the description of the Charlie Kirk show as it appears today, the 21st of September 2025, on Apple Podcasts. Quote, Charlie is America's hardest working grassroots activist who has your inside scoop on the biggest news of the day and what's really going on behind the headlines, end quote. They 100% push this fake grassroots line because they don't want you to think about the fact that they are funded by dark money.
Thank you, Citizens United. Look at all the wonderful things you've done.
Yep. So, I know it feels grubby. It feels grubby going after a dead guy, going after his money and his funding, but it really matters. It really, really matters.
Yes, he was assassinated, so it became like a flashpoint, and once you focus on it, there's a story there. But given this is the Ready to Rumble podcast, he would have showed up on our radar eventually, and we'd be giving the same exact dissertation. This is where he came from. This is what he said.
Yeah, no, he's been on my radar for a while. I think the only reason I didn't really get to him sooner is because I've had more interesting characters I wanted to go after. There's a couple of top class religious kooks who I've had in the pipeline, that have basically been next off the rank for a while, but then we got derailed by, Ozzy Osbourne, Hulk Hogan, Charlie Kirk, etc. Yeah.
The whole Ready to Rumble thing is we bring you the worst of the worst, not just the headliners, but like the seedy underbelly even of that organization. And Charlie Kirk was right up there with, Ben Shapiro and Crowder and the rest of the A-listers. So, and that's the driving point of the podcast is for every A-lister like Kirk, there's thousands of more just like him and worse.
Yeah, there's no way we wouldn't have got to him eventually, but that's fine. So that was Charlie Kirk's funding. His funding was millionaire and billionaire dark money dressed up as grassroots activism. And I think that's a really, really important point to make, and it's a really, really important point to understand.
So yes, with the now genesis of this super villain, he's well funded. He's a young protege that this shady billionaire looks down on as, yes, this is the next coming of Christ. Let's put all kinds of money into it. You could tell me just those facts, and I'd be like, are we talking about Steven Crowder? Are we talking about Ben Shapiro?
Yeah.
Matt Walsh? Like, I need more. Benny Johnson?
I guess the difference is that those names that you just mentioned haven't specifically formed a political action committee of their own.
That's true. That's I guess how Charlie was different, because he made an official thing, and especially all of the college shit. Like, why is he showing up to college campuses? Because it makes him look good, because he's engaging the youth, and he's completely stomping on their opinions because they're not as equipped as he is, because he does this professionally. So it's a win-win for him.
Yeah, and Charlie Kirk doing these college debates, it's one of those things that everyone's aware of, but most people, myself included, never really watched much of. I think most of us just saw a few clips, and so never really saw how those debates ran. And I've sort of watched more of them in the longer form over the last few days, and it's nice to be right once in a while, because I went into them thinking, this is just going to be another person who has a very well-defined and very well-rehearsed set of rhetorical points. Not even talking points, not even arguments, just a bag of rhetorical points, a bag of rhetorical tricks, essentially, that they can use against an unprepared teenager who's going to get flustered in the moment, on the mic, nerves, standing up in front of the crowd, unprepared. Kirk's going to throw some kind of fallacy at them, be it a Gish Gallop, or be it a straw man, or be it, a utopian fallacy. Take your pick. He had all of them.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to be vindicated as being right, because that's exactly how they went. Look, Charlie Kirk was good at what he did, but what he did was bullshit.
It's like, the worst kind of Wolverine, yeah.
It's like watching a good faith healer. You can be the best faith healer in the world. It's
Pop
still
off.
Bullshit. Exactly.
Yeah.
Pop off. You can be the best faker in the world. It's still fake.
Right.
And that's what Charlie did. It was fake. He didn't address people's questions. He didn't address the issues. He just recycled his talking points, dressed up with logical fallacies and rhetorical dodges, and called it a debate. Even in that surrounded thing, that Jubilee thing that he did, that surrounded with
right.
the 20 opposition people.
The one where he weaponized his smile against one of them.
Oh God, that was the creepiest damn thing you're ever going to see. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But that was it. If you've seen any of that, you've seen everything he's ever said.
Right. Like the Saw franchise.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you don't need to go and watch more, is what I'm saying. I did it for you because I love our listeners, and this is what we're here for. We do it so you don't have to. So you can take my word for it as your doctor. There is literally nothing else to see. All of his debating was so surface level that you genuinely have seen it all if you've seen a 15-second clip.
The only slight asterisk I'd put on that, because these are the videos I focus on, is when a famous lefty YouTuber or podcaster shows up to one of those things and actually offers a challenge. And of course, their mic is cut, they're escorted away, or he just talks over them. Like it's a shit show all around. But finally, when somebody who knows what they're talking about shows up, it doesn't turn out very well.
And this is the thing. It's actually a blueprint that is not new. I mean, if you know the name Ray Comfort, he's a
not while I'm drinking, not while I have a mouthful of Chardonnay. How dare you bring up Ray Comfort? Oh God.
But his stock and trade is the quote man on the street end quote interview. But it just so happens that he always picks stoned teenagers. He never picks the professional atheist debater. He doesn't pick me. He doesn't pick you.
When he does pick someone like Matt Dillahunty, he concedes the debate at the beginning and says, "I'm just here to pray for you, mate." Like, oh, what a fucking weasel.
Yeah.
So apparently we have some clips to go with all of this.
Indeed, we do.
How's that for a segue? Just direct to the point. We need a segue. Hey, it's time for some clips. Let's look at the clips.
So this is the Ready to Rumble podcast. So let's have a look at how Rumble responded to the death of Charlie Kirk. And we're going to start with a Chad. We're going to start with a Chad.
It looks like a Chad.
We're going to start with a man called Chad Prather. Now, Chad calls himself
Chad. That's perfect.
Yep. Chad calls himself a comedian because comedian is not a protected term, so no one can stop him.
If there was a requirement for a license, that's all I'm asking for.
Just prove it. Just give us one punchline. Doesn't it have to be a good one? Just a punchline.
If you're a battle rapper, okay, spit some bars. Show me what you're working with.
Yeah. So let's have a listen to what Chad had to say.
Day of memory, but I'm glad that you're with us. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad we're here together. And the reason I'm glad is because family matters, and I believe that we're family. We've been doing this for a long time. I was thinking about this yesterday, how long that we have been spending time together. You know, I often jokingly say just running our mouth. You know, if you can make a living running your mouth, it's a pretty good job. I've often joked it that way. But what we're learning is running your mouth can get you hurt, can get you killed. We knew that. We've always known that it was a risk to open your mouth and try to speak truth, speak your opinion, discuss, debate, dialogue. But we saw that yesterday. We commemorate it 24 years later after 9/11.
Yeah. So what we get there for quite a while is a whole bunch of extremely hypocritical saying things can lead to violence from a guy who's on the side of left-wing people are all crazy and need to be exterminated.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Charlie got what he's deserved. People on Rumble are saying that he got what he deserved because he opened his mouth.
Yeah, look, I really wish that hypocrisy had a physical form.
The god of hypocrisy, you have summoned me from the depths.
Yes. I really wish that hypocrisy came in the form of lightning bolts or cracks in the earth directly under the feet of the hypocritical person. The sort of thing that we're hearing from Chad now is representative of so much of what we're hearing from the right wing in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder. The rhetoric has been so high, the tension and the energy has been so high for so long, and it's coming right from the top. It is coming all the way from the president down. And so to have these people suddenly in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder saying, whoa, having an opinion can get you killed. Running your mouth can get you killed. You know, these were the fuck your feelings people of 2016.
These are the same people who on right wing or left wing or YouTube, just the comment section, if you bring up something like this, they're the first ones to say, I wish you were sexually assaulted. You should hang yourself. You should XYZ. They're if you want to compare apples to apples on liberal threats and incitements to violence versus what is just the regular everyday occurrence on a right wing, chat line. Holy shit, that's all they do. So now they have a flashpoint event that they can point to give them excuse to, fully embrace it and go forward with it. But that was always the underlying, it was always there. That's part of their, normal course of doing business. So now it's been amped up to 11, and it's got a sympathetic asshole in the White House who's encouraging the same.
Yeah. So I don't want to play any more of that one, but I do want to skip forward to Chad goes on like this for quite a while. Of course, he talks about God a lot, but I just want to skip forward a few minutes to show you.
Before we go any further, I want to tell you a personal story about Charlie, but before we get into that, I want to ask you to support this show. You know, we bring this show. We don't put it somewhere where you got to pay a subscription to it, but I want you to.
Do you have liver pills?
He has the gold.
The gold, yes, invested gold. Charlie supported silver, so right there.
So he's on the other side of Charlie. Oh no.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that in, that even on a day of grief, even on a day of mourning, you can't not bow to your gold sponsors.
In honor of the tragic day events of today, it's going to be 50% off for the next half hour, folks. You got to get in line right now for the next half hour, 50% off in honor of Charlie.
Yep. I want to tell you my personal story about my good friend Charlie. Let's pray to God and make sure that we're right with God. And let me tell you this personal story on this day of grief. But first, buy gold and support the show.
Remember, them catheters aren't going to apply themselves.
Yeah. So look, we will do more on Chad. He's an interesting chap. We will talk more about Chad in the future. So I don't want to do too much more on him today, but just to let our audience know that even in these darkest of days, even in these saddest of days, as we're grieving and mourning the loss, the grift goes on. Never forget. So
ABG, always be grifted.
100%.
Oh, speaking of grift, the new CEO of TP USA is Erica Kirk, who has started a GoFundMe because apparently her net worth is just not enough to cover the nut of a single mother with 2 children, who are now collectively worth about $12 million.
Yeah, that $12 million inheritance plus the $400,000 a year gig that she just picked up. Not enough to cover her and the 2
Although
kids.
I did see a meme that made me chuckle about Charlie looking down from heaven thinking, a woman is running my company now?
Again, I don't want to be judgmental about the actions of a grieving widow. I do want to point out that Charlie had some very, very clear ideas about women and where they should be in society.
Indeed.
All right.
We're not saying it. Charlie Kirk is saying it.
Yes.
With how his death was acceptable so that we can have a Second Amendment. That's not my view. That's Charlie's view.
And look, and if we've seen nothing else over the last week, we've seen how angry it makes people on the right wing when you quote Charlie Kirk to them.
Yeah, sorry, he did say that.
We brought you the hits last time. The empathy, the DEI, the Second Amendment. He said these things. There are videos. We are just telling you what he said, not what we said, what he said.
And if we follow what he said, then we become demonic, according to the right. And we're terrorists.
Yeah, apparently that'll get you on a list and get you fired and get you cancelled from ABC when you say back to Charlie Kirk supporters the words that Charlie Kirk said, which I guess is no different to when you quote the Bible back to Christians.
Very similar things. And add to that the fact that people are just being punished for not showing enough fealty. Like, are you mourning and grieving the right way? Because if you're not, you're a traitor. Look at this fallen American hero. How dare you? It's like fucking John McCain passed and there was no Trump because, Trump doesn't like people who got captured. So, but that, it's just hypocrisy upon hypocrisy. And if we follow what Charlie Kirk said, we're the bad guys now. What does that say about your side?
Well, one thing that I've been thinking about a lot over the last week is how the First Amendment works in practicality, how it's been interpreted in terms of real world application by the Supreme Court. And of course, the corollary to free speech is the proscription against compelled speech. Yeah. So it's long been the Supreme Court's position that the First Amendment, as well as saying the government can't make laws to stop you saying things, it also has to mean that the government can't pass laws to make you say things.
That would follow.
Right? And so all of these free speech absolutists who are suddenly on the side of you're not grieving hard enough.
Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel.
That's where we are with the free speech part of things.
Yeah.
So I want to move on to the next clip, and this is somebody we introduced a couple of episodes ago. This is our good friend, Victor Davis Hansen.
I remember Victor.
Now,
he's the guy who touches himself all the time, right?
He does, yes.
But not in a sexual way, just he's always touching his face.
Just always got a hand on his face. Yep. So let's hear from Victor. Sorry, I'm just looking at what he's got on his shelf there. And up above his female co-host without a name's left shoulder, we've got Wheelock's Latin and Land of Hope. But above Victor's right shoulder, we've got some kind of brass helmet.
Is that an ancient artifact?
I'm going to bet you $1 that that's not an ancient artifact. That's a modern reproduction.
Could be a Roman soldier's helmet taken from the battlefields of Gallipoli.
Well, I can tell you with 100% certainty that it's a fairly low-ranking person's helmet, because the higher-ranking soldiers had crests on their helmet, and you can see how little distance there is between the top of the helmet and the bookshelf above it, so there's no crest.
So even as a Roman soldier cosplayer, he's still a beta male cuck.
He is indeed.
Okay, what does he have to say today? Jesus Christ.
Okay, let's go.
So, Victor, the hunt for Charlie Kirk's assassin, I know that you and Jack talked about it on your Thursday show, but...
Oh, so this is a couple of days after this is the Saturday after Charlie Kirk's murder.
But there's a lot more to say, I think, about Charlie Kirk and especially his significance to our culture at this time. So I was hoping to talk about that, and also a little update on where the investigation is going.
Yes, well, I'm speaking on a Thursday morning, and it has not even been 24 hours since the news came. There's been these horrific videos of his actual last moment of life, really, that wound. Apparently, the shooter has been identified, not his ID, but identified in the sense that they see where he was, they know where he went. He dropped it said 30 caliber rifle, but I think bolt action. I have one like it here. I think it's a 30-06. That's a very powerful, accurate weapon, especially at 200 yards. So when people said he was a trained assassin, I think anybody who went to a range with a 30-06 with a scope on it.
Sorry, I'm just going to pause here. I was mistaken. This is not the Saturday. This is obviously the day after. Just on a technical production note, I would like to point out how in focus the helmet is and how out of focus Victor is.
Almost as if they want us to focus on the helmet.
Apparently, basic competence is too much to ask.
Look, I use a webcam. Okay,
yeah,
so
man.
How did they not get to my level?
I am looking at you from the tiny little camera that's built into the top of my laptop.
Yep, same.
And apparently that does a better job than whatever the hell rig Victor has going on here.
Yeah, this is all USB, and that obviously involved like 20 more different kinds of wires going every which way. So, fuck you, boomer.
All right, we'll keep rolling this.
100 yards, especially from a downward slope. I used to target practice with it. It's a very lethal gun. There were other reports, and I want to be very careful what I said, that there were other bullets in the chamber. In other words, he thought probably he was going to shoot 2 or 3 times with the first shot. He could tell from his scope was a lethal one. And then he made his getaway, but there were engraved bullets with messages on them. I don't know, symbols that somebody had carved into them. And supposedly, according to the Daily Mail, one of them had transgender imagery on it. I don't know what that is.
Okay, time out.
The other thing is...
Time out. I know a little bit about this. Yeah, one of the casings said TRN, which obviously is short for trans, or 10 seconds on Google tells you that TRN is the name of the company of one of the world's biggest bullet manufacturers.
I don't know what trans imagery is.
Apparently it's TRN. There you have it.
And if you've seen the images too, I mean, the TRN that is stamped into the casing. I'm not a gun guy. I'm not a bullets guy, but I know what a commercial stamp looks like.
He had to chisel that shit. Like, how else did he get that on the bullet unless it was a machine stamped factory thing?
Exactly. That's, if you've seen the images, that TRN is not the work of a dude sitting at home with a screwdriver or a file or something. Like, that's a stamp. That is a machined stamp. So
I think they will find him
yeah.
because the gun can be traced. They can go to, if he's a student age shooter, they can go to every gun range in the area or anywhere and ask if there was a person, fitting that description who wanted to practice with a 30 caliber, 30-06
Because they
rifle.
only practice at a gun range.
The FBI will find him.
Yeah, that's the only place you can shoot in America is at specific gun ranges.
Yeah.
Under close supervision.
Couldn't have been Jim Bob's backyard of anti-Al Qaeda training with Uncle Jesse. Like, does that not exist anymore?
Oh no. There are no backyards, backwoods setups where people go and do militia training on the weekends. Yeah. But I want to leave this image up on screen here of a very confident Victor Davis Hanson. This was the point I wanted to get to with his video. His extremely confident, you can trace the gun, the FBI will find him. Korak, do you recall how the alleged shooter ended up in custody?
I do, and it was similar to the plot of Seven, where until Kevin Spacey walked into the police department with bloody hands, Brad Pitt didn't have a fucking clue.
Yep. Turns out the alleged shooter, because I want to make sure we're saying things legally, because I'm careful in my language.
Yes.
The person who is in custody is definitionally innocent until he is proven guilty in a court of law. So
that requires due process, by the
way. So the alleged shooter was brought into custody after being turned in by his father.
Yep.
And his father didn't turn him in until he had spoken to his local bishop. And we're not talking about a bishop in the Catholic sense, tall hat, black robe, in charge of a significant cathedral or whatever. We're talking about bishop in the Mormon sense. Now, if you're not familiar, because it's Utah, we're talking about a Mormon person.
And this is where and Mormons start, like, your first low-grade grunt level is elder. Like, they're starting there. So bishop has got to be like at least a green belt.
A bishop, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Mormon church structure, a bishop is literally just a dude. If Korak and I were in the Mormon church, we would have our turn being bishop of the ward, which is your local area.
Come to me, my child. Tell me of your woes, and I shall pray to Jesus.
Like, literally, your bishop, in a Mormon sense, the bishop is just a guy. He's someone who's an accountant Monday to Friday and organizes the church shit on Saturday and Sunday.
If I may digress, and this may end up on the cutting room floor, God, I hope it does, because there was a girl I was dating briefly. She was a Mormon. She took me to a Mormon church because I was like, she knew I was an atheist. I wasn't trying to be a dick or like make fun of her religion, but we were dating, and I was like, she invited me to church. I was like, I've never seen a Mormon ceremony. Let me take a look at what this is. And for the first, I want to say half hour, it was regular dudes talking from the pulpit about their taxes or how Jesus helped them, or et cetera, et cetera. And they were presented as very official beings. So after we left, she decided to leave halfway through the service, by the way. I was all about it, watching people during COVID pass around communion with children holding the trays. So I was like, yeah, this is fucking amazing. She's like, no, let's get out of here. So I was like, so those guys who spoke at the beginning, were they deacons or friars or what? And they're like, no, they're just, the bishops of the church, and they just, talk about the things that they want to talk about. I'm like, so no ordainment, no raiments, no ceremony. You're just, hey, it's time for Fred to give his P. This is an encounter group or an AA meeting about Jesus. And so that's how they do. So I was not expecting that.
Yeah. Look, it's again, for anyone who's unfamiliar with the way the actual Mormon church is structured, it cannot be overstated how DIY Mormonism is. Right? It's one of the ways that the Mormon church as an entity has been able to accrue, and this is a conservative estimate, $150 billion with a B dollars.
Yeah, right up there with Scientology. I wonder who brings in more dollars.
The Mormon church has incredible amounts of money. And a big part of the reason why is the exploitation of the worshippers. The outlay for actually getting the Jesus-y shit done is effectively zero. The church doesn't pay people to do stuff. If you're a Mormon, the church is your life. And so, like you said, I think it's like 12 or 13 that boys become elders in the church. It's distressingly young. And then you come back, you're a missionary, you come back from your mission, you're a priest in the Mormon church automatically. Then your bishop is just the local guy, like he's just the dude. All of it is done with unpaid labor. And that's a significant factor in how the Mormon church has managed to accrue so much goddamn money.
And I got lost there for a minute because as the live viewers will understand, I'm drinking and smoking this entire time. It's how I cope with this information. I was taking the steps to be like, how did we go from Charlie Kirk to Mormonism? Oh, right. The father of the shooter was, and instead of actually going to the police, of course, he did the reasonable thing and go to his religious leader, who's just Bob, who works at Jiffy Lube, but on the weekends, he's a bishop. Okay. That's where we're at.
Since we're on the subject of Mormonism, if I may be allowed a small digression, there is a very good podcast produced by the New Zealand Herald called Heaven's Helpline. It is about the Mormon Church, and more specifically, it is about the helpline that was set up by the Mormon Church after revelations of sexual abuse by people within the church. It was set up as a helpline for bishops who were presented with congregants coming to them with stories of abuse. Now, this sounds like a fantastic idea. Who do you think answers the phone when the local bishop rings the Mormon helpline? What sort of person do you think answers the phone?
Well, surely a qualified call screener who has experience with this type of subject and can address their concerns, or pass them to somebody who would know how to address their concerns. Surely.
You get half a point for using the word qualified, because the person who answers the helpline is a lawyer.
Yep. Okay. That's where that's the route we're going. Okay.
Yep.
Is this actionable?
It turns out that the helpline is set up not for the assistance of congregants, not for the assistance of bishops, but for the legal ass covering of the Mormon Church as an entity.
We're in trouble if they ever get along with Scientologists, because they have got that shit locked down.
Nobody sues like a Scientologist. Yeah. We're in trouble if we start talking about Scientology.
So Papa Mormon turns in the boy after. Did we learn what the advice from the bishop was?
I have not heard what the advice from the bishop was. Since father turned in son, I can only assume that the advice from the bishop was go turn him in. Because if the advice was anything else, the father would not have turned him in.
I was going to say, I hope the bishop consulted with God or the representative of God.
Well,
and so
it's the Mormons, so it's Heavenly Father, not God. The Heavenly Father is the terminology they use.
Right.
Yeah.
So apparently Heavenly Father gave him the thumbs up. Yes, you should turn in your son who murdered a person. Yes. Glad we could have this chat, because apparently you're having a crisis of conscience when your son, let me check my notes. Yeah, murdered a person.
Allegedly. Anyway.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. I love the magic word allegedly. Anyway, so the point of the story is that Victor Davis Hanson had a whole bunch of misplaced faith in cash, let's go door to door and ask people, did you do it? Patel's FBI. I mean, come on, that was literally his strategy. That was literally his investigative strategy was let's get agents going door to door and asking every person who answers, did you shoot Charlie Kirk? Did you shoot Charlie Kirk?
What do you expect from the person who runs the FBI and doesn't know where or how to get in touch with the Epstein files? I mean, who else? Who would know? Who? Not me. Not me. Why me?
You know that he had recently fired the head of the Utah field office, FBI field office?
I did not know that. Why? Because DEI hire? Oh, shit.
Because the head of the Utah field office was a brown person. I don't know if she was actually an African American specifically, but it was a melanated person of the female persuasion.
Can't have that. Nope.
Can't have that.
Wow.
So Kash Patel, who, let's remind listeners, is of South Asian extraction himself.
Yeah, he ain't white. What are we even talking about here?
But because the current regime's thinking is that no person who is not a cisgendered heterosexual white man could possibly be in their government position for any reason other than DEI, this 25-year field agent with experience in this type of investigation was sacked and replaced by a white guy who had never run an investigation like this before.
Oh, boy. You know, if digression is the name of the game today, and it usually is, I'm reminded of how on September 11th of 2001, the guy who was the director of all the flight traffic, whatever the FAA or the whatever the letters are, that was his first day. And he was, his first day was September 11th. He was replacing, I forget who the qualified candidate was, but they're out. And George Bush the Lesser, George W. Bush, put him in on September 11th. So where are you at, conspiracy theorists? So yeah, Republicans don't study history, so they repeat it cyclically and predictably within a decade. This was not that long ago.
We never learn. No one ever learns a goddamn thing.
You can't have nice things.
No. So, Victor Davis Hanson had misplaced faith in the FBI to catch the shooter. We're also going to discuss the FBI in our next clip, which comes from The Quartering. Now, Quartering is run by a guy by the name of Jeremy Hambley, another guy who's on our radar, who I don't want to talk too much about right now, but let's hear what he has to say about the FBI's
accomplice in Charlie Kirk assassin Tyler Robinson probed as new footage emerges of suspicious character after the shooting. Now, let me tell you this. Here are some of the things we do know. Here are some of the things we do know.
Say it again.
He made a phone call. Mm-hmm. You see him making a phone call right before the assassination. Who was that phone call to? My guess is trans roommate. Then there is suspicious ring doorbell camera footage of him talking about the assassination after the event. Who was he talking to? The FBI is investigating whether assassin Tyler Robinson had an accomplice with him when he fired the shot. Agents are looking into footage showing Robinson talking into a doorbell camera about the murder shortly after he scampered away from the Losi Center at Utah Valley University. Excuse me?
Surely you have footage of this occurrence. If you've seen it. No, just to be real quick, if I see something on my computer, like when the moments that Kirk got assassinated, I grab my screen recording software. I'm like, this might not be here tomorrow. So if you see a ring door dash cam, okay.
Look, this is all very, very silly. For our listeners, Jeremy is reading from the Daily Mail website. The Daily Mail, of course, is a Rupert Murdoch-run British tabloid. It is one of the worst of the British tabloids, and that's saying something. The language that they're using is saying things like, we've been trying to avoid today, so there's no allegedly in there when they're saying that Tyler Robertson was Charlie Kirk's assassin. There's no couching in the terms, there's no respecting the due process, there's no acknowledgement of the fact that, like I said before, this guy is definitionally innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. He has not confessed, he has not pled guilty.
But that's the tagline for Ready to Rumble, with better journalistic standards than the Daily Mail.
Oh God, yeah. But this is the thing: journalistic standards at the Daily Mail, that's a super low bar, but they managed to tunnel under it anyway.
I think the closest we'll ever get to learning that is how exactly it works is Alex Jones's depositions about how his employees were trained to operate, which consisted of, here's the break room and here's where you log in and say ridiculous shit.
Oh Lord, there's not even that level of standard on Rumble here.
Right.
This is a guy. This is literally a guy taking headlines from the worst tabloid in existence and dragging them down even further.
Yeah. So I got to ask, as we've already blown past the hour mark, how many more clips do we have? Because we may or may not have another Lord of the Rings marathon on our hands.
One more.
Okay,
just
so
one.
only
just the
only
one.
two.
Okay.
Two more hours of commentary. Awesome. I'm here for it.
Look, I've saved the best for last. This one is fun. This is what we came for. Okay.
Oh, can't wait.
Now I've never seen this guy before I found this clip.
Whoa.
I know nothing about him, but I also don't think we need to, and you'll see what I mean very soon.
Hello, everyone. It's Michael Jacob with Unleashing Intuition Secrets. So the Charlie Kirk assassination show, so we're going to call it a show, was a captured operation by the White Hats. And if you start to look at it like that, you stop trying to make things fit that don't fit. Right? The way he was shot, the way his head rolled.
That's what I've been saying.
You're shot in the neck, right? You know which side? Let's see. He was
Let him cook.
Shot in the
Let him cook.
Right side of the neck. So if you're shot in the neck, and the way the blood, came out, fake blood basically came out, and we saw
blood.
The device underneath his shirt, probably so that we could see. They did it on purpose, I believe. I think if they were going to do a squib job, which is located under his throat, mask, you can see it if you look closer. We'll show a little bit of that. You would notice that this is a staged operation. And it was staged just
false
like the
flag.
Trump
Alex Jones false flag
assassination was also staged. So they obviously knew the Black Hats were going to do this assassination.
Say
so
crisis actor. Say crisis.
And they made it into a movie for everyone to see.
Yep.
Wow.
So they knew that the Black Hats were going to attempt to assassinate Charlie Kirk. So the White Hats got in there first with fake blood packs, explosive squibs under the skin. Yeah. Now, the rest of that clip, he does go through frame by frame the actual shooting, which we're definitely not going to inflict upon our listeners because, like we said last time, that video is disturbing. But that's the good stuff. That's what we came for. A proper full-on conspiracy.
Yes. And he got so close to my actual conspiracy, but then he veered way into right field and got into birds aren't real and what are tigers and all that shit. But no, let's stop at, okay, Charlie Kirk was assassinated at this point in the afternoon, and less than an hour or two later, the Senate voted to not release the Epstein files. So where are you at, conspiracy theorists? Come on. And Trump allowing him to have a head of state funeral and lying in state as though he was the leader of a fucking nation. And then when asked, which got Jimmy Kimmel booted off the air, the question that got him booted off the air was, what are your thoughts on Charlie Kirk? And he said, yeah, I feel terrible. Anyway, we got a new ballroom coming in. It's going to be amazing. And Jimmy Kimmel pointed that out and then was fired. Where are you at, Alex Jones?
Yeah, I know. I honestly don't know what to add. I mean, when you're at a point where, like we said earlier, nothing upsets the Charlie Kirk fans more than quoting Charlie Kirk. And when you're at a point where nothing upsets the Trump fans more than quoting Trump, what does that mean? What does that mean for the state of the nation, for the state of the government, for the state of the democracy, for the state of fucking anything?
Oh, democracy? Did you say democracy? No. We've blown past this. This is autocracy, oligarchy, straight into authoritarian fascism. Like, it's not on the march; it's on the sprint, which is ironic considering that Trump can't sprint. Anyway.
Yeah.
Wow.
So let me just roll this for just a few more seconds because this guy's great fun.
It's like the Trump assassination was a movie for everyone to see. Some people thought it was real. Maybe there were some aspects of it that were real. I'm not going to, decipher everything. Some people want to believe this.
I'm not going to decipher it. I'm not going to do any homework.
There's been enough of us that pointed out that it is basically a staged event. This was another staged event, as we're going to work this, decipher this to a certain extent.
Where's Charlie?
Yeah.
Where's Charlie?
Points to Michael in this. Points to Michael for consistency. At least he's not trying to say out one side of his mouth that the Trump shootings were real, while at the same time claiming that the Kirk shooting was fake. So points for consistency. It's all fake. That's something. That's a worldview I can understand.
Okay,
right?
Sure.
Not what I agree with necessarily, but it's what I can understand.
Especially considering now that we've seen close up what it looks like to get shot in the neck with a high caliber rifle versus what Trump produced on his ear, which, given the amount of time he was on the floor and the amount of time it took him to get up, there should have been blood every fucking where, because I can only describe what happened to Charlie as all of his blood exited his body simultaneously. Like, that was insane.
Yeah. Yeah, the words arterial spray come to mind in the case of Charlie Kirk. But even if you don't hit an artery, I mean, everything above the neck is very vascular. Right. People die from bleeding noses. Yourself, if you cut yourself shaving or whatever, it takes a long time to stop. Yeah. You don't get an ear wound that just leaves 2 streaks of blood down the cheek. Right. You don't get grazed by a bullet and then just have a couple of drips of blood down the face. No, your ear is going to be a mess. Even if there's not a huge amount of actual tissue damage, which, it's all cartilage, of course, which doesn't grow back. So,
and according to photos,
there's no scar there.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, according to photos, there was 0 cartilage damage. It's a Christmas miracle.
Yeah. So this puts me in a weird position where my conspiracism is kind of less consistent than this full-on conspiracy theorist, because I believe Charlie Kirk was genuinely murdered and he's genuinely dead. That was not a fake. I also have very, very serious questions about the veracity of the Trump shootings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know he's just the tip of the iceberg. I've seen other conspiracy theorists who are looking at people in the crowd who happened to be just doing something when the shot rang out. And they're like, see how he moves like this? Like, that's a hidden pistol. And the shot actually came from 10 feet away. It's like,
he gets deep into that as well, going frame by frame that there's someone standing behind him. Like I said, I don't want to inflict that video onto our listeners, but
we can make a whole episode out of this dude.
We absolutely could. Yeah. No, he's not got a huge following on Rumble, but I feel the need to dive further into some of his less disturbing conspiracy stuff. So
I hope that not only is he a regular, but since he's small potatoes, perhaps we can invite him on the show and just let him cook.
Yeah,
let him cook, man.
There's a non-zero chance he'll say yes. But yeah, no. I've got to do more diving onto this guy's channel, because if this is his level of conspiracism, that's got to be some good stuff in there, man. It's got to be good fun.
Let him cook. Yeah. All right, do we have more from this guy?
No, that'll do.
Oh, that's it?
Well, we can if you want, but it's just from here. He starts breaking down the video frame by frame, and that's where it gets sort of a bit graphic and a bit disturbing. And I don't want to inflict that on people. If you want to, sully your own browser with Rumble and go and watch them yourself, it's a free country. You're all grown-ups. You could do that if you want to. But for the sensitivities of those who don't want to see the graphic version of the Charlie Kirk shooting getting broken down frame by frame, I'm not going to inflict that on anybody.
Yeah, that's probably for the best. Okay, so I think we'll wrap it there. Thank you for listening, everybody, to our parade of death, murder, assassination, and destruction. Tune in next time when we continue the theme by getting back to Hulk Hogan and Ozzy Osbourne, and then eventually we'll move on to combing the depths of Rumble to bring you more of this morbid shit. Because now that Charlie Kirk has been killed, I guarantee this is not the last time we'll be talking about the fallout from that, especially in the light of I'd love to tackle Nick Fuentes and the Groiper versus the Kirk kind of infighting, which I didn't know was a thing until after this Kirk thing happened. Because I put like Crowder and Shapiro and all of them kind of in the same milieu of the bottom of the cistern. But there's actually faction among those people. And the Groipers, for a long time, have been calling for the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So there's that.
It's one of those political epithets, proverbs, maxims. I don't know the quite phrase, but it's one of those sort of cliches in politics that the biggest divisions in politics are not between political parties, but within political parties. And the same is true for the right-wing media sphere. The supporters of Crowder and Fuentes and Shapiro can't fucking stand each other.
I didn't know that, and I'm so pleased.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And I don't know, and this is going to be one thing to keep an eye on too, is I don't know where the Charlie Kirk supporters are going to land.
Right. Well, it's like watching a whole group of politically empowered Tool fans.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Tool fans are the fucking worst. And I say this as a fan of the band Tool.
It's like when Al Franken was in Congress, and he said, I like Ted Cruz more than most Republicans do, and I fucking hate Ted Cruz.
Yeah. So I'm really interested to see what's going to happen. I think ideologically, Charlie Kirk most aligns with Steven Crowder.
Okay.
Because
and that he's got a loveless marriage and 2 children.
Yeah, essentially. Well, he doesn't have a marriage anymore, does he?
It's more alive than Crowder's marriage currently is.
But you know what Crowder does have? Gender affirming surgery.
That's true. I mean, I don't have plates in my chest, and if I did, awesome. I don't even know what to do with that.
I don't have plates in my chest either, nor do I intend to get plates in my chest. But I do know that if I were to get plates in my chest, I think I would schedule that surgery for some time other than the 8th month of my wife's twin pregnancy.
It might, but considering that also when your wife is pregnant, you semi-order her to take care of your dogs, take out the trash, do XYZ, handle medicine that you're not supposed to handle if you're pregnant. So just put on some rubber gloves. There's a list of things I probably wouldn't do if I were Crowder.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that video that came out where he's because that was post-surgery, that one, that video that got released where he's abusing his wife. It's a level of narcissism that I just cannot relate to, that I am so important that not only is important that my chest gets bulked out with titanium plates so I can feel more manly and gender affirmed, but I'm going to do it specifically at a time when the woman who is carrying my children, two of them, two at a time, is at her biggest, least comfortable, least able to get around for herself. I'm going to schedule this completely voluntary surgery that has no urgency about it whatsoever for the last month of my wife's twin pregnancy. Like, I cannot wrap my head around how big a piece of shit you got to do that to your wife.
Yeah, if somebody speaks to me the way that Crowder spoke to his wife, I immediately like flip a switch in my brain and think, I can't take you seriously anymore. There's nothing you're going to say that, and one of two things are going to happen. I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself, and you're going to beat the shit out of me because you really are a monster, or I'm going to walk out and this was all a bunch of bluster. So let's roll those dice, because this is toxic as fuck and I have to leave.
Yeah. Not only can I not fathom doing that to the person who, you have stood up in front of a crowd of people and declared your undying love for, I just can't imagine doing that to a person.
Right. A waiter.
Yeah.
The garbage collector. Like, who gives you the right to speak to somebody like that?
Yeah. Like, it's absolutely insane. I simply cannot wrap my head around it. But anyway, Crowd is a piece of shit. Fuentes is a piece of shit. Shapiro is a piece of shit. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens in a post-Charlie Kirk world to those three especially, because I think that there's going to be a bit of vying for Charlie's audience. There's going to be a bit of vying for Charlie's ideological position. So yeah, it's going to be fun to see how all of this shakes out.
How do you think Erica Kirk's going to make out as the new leader? Do you think? I mean, I don't like her chances, but I don't think she's going to become the next talking head broadcast, to everybody.
Look, I don't know. I don't know how to think about it, because I would like to think that I'm not a piece of shit. And the people who are invested in or responsible for making those decisions about her success or lack thereof are pieces of shit.
This is about getting into which guy do you think is going to take over the dog fighting realm?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They're all terrible.
Ideologically, everybody in that sphere should throw a Bible at her opened to 2 Timothy and say something along the lines of, shut the fuck up, bitch.
Yeah, sorry.
That's what should happen if there is any ideological consistency.
It's what Charlie would have wanted.
It's what Charlie would have wanted.
Charlie.
Yes, that would be consistent with Charlie's position. But we know that the right wing is nothing if not colossally hypocritical. So I don't think that is going to happen. What I think we're likely to see is her media appearances are going to be very much tailored back towards conservative women. I think that she is going to style herself as the voice of conservative women. I think she's going to put herself more in opposition to the Candace Owenses of the world, as opposed to positioning herself either against or alongside the Crowders and the Fuenteses, etc.
And I'm sure it'll be 100% organic and from the heart, and not at all managed by a billionaire team of very, very coordinated people.
Yeah.
I would like to note that we're going to be consistent on this podcast. You said, Ben Shapiro's terrible, Dave Rubin's terrible. We don't like Steven Crowder. If something were tragic were to befall them tomorrow, we would still be saying that, as we are about Charlie Kirk. Just the fact that he, got assassinated. Obviously, there's all the tragedy that comes along with that. But he was a piece of shit before that happened, and we've got the receipts to prove it. So. Anybody else feel like sowing division in this country and saying that anybody who's raped should have to be forced to carry that baby to term? Maybe there's some people that will find that kind of statement to be hazardous to your health.
Look, I do not agree with political assassination. I do not agree with murder as a way of silencing people you disagree with. But I think that an appropriate way to close this two-parter is to bookend it with the way I opened this two-parter, which is to repeat the statement that I made on Twitter, which was, I won't be shedding any tears for somebody who built their career around spreading lies and fomenting hate.
And I never call for violence. That's something Nick Fuentes did against Charlie Kirk when he said, I have shooters, not fans. And Charlie Kirk wasn't a real Christian, and many, many, many other things that called for that kind of violence. And now that kind of rhetoric is being leveled against liberals as though they were the ones calling for it in the first place. So that's where we're at, folks.
Yep, that's where we're at.
And on that note, we'd like to thank our patrons, subscribers. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, hit the notifications, all the things. We wrote all the music, we do all the things, and we love our fans and supporters. And next time, there will be more death, but it'll be about more famous people who actually affected things in a somewhat positive way, i.e. Ozzy Osbourne. So we'll get back to that, and then we will get back to the rumbling of the rumble and bringing you the best of the worst of people who really need a bigger spotlight on them so that we can show you just how bad it is in the underbelly of Rumble. I am your favorite bard, Korak the Bard.
And I am Dr. Scorpion the Bird.
See you next time, folks.
Good night, everybody.